Here's 5 Rolexes under $5,000. First up is the Rolex Oyster, just the Oyster. It's reference 6426. It's the most no frills Rolex you could buy. It's 34 millimeters, it's manual wind. It's really super basic for a Rolex. Most people buying this watch are just looking to buy the cheapest thing they could find that says Rolex on it, which is not what I would advise. Even though they're really basic, you're probably still gonna spend around $3,000 to get one. Next up is a slightly more interesting Oyster Date, reference 6694. This is when you start getting some options for some slightly nicer looking dials. There's a date, it's still manual wind, it's still 34 millimeters, but again, they're pretty cheap. Next up is the Vintage Air King. Vintage, not the modern version. Now we're in automatic movement territory, so you don't need to wind them. Reference 5500 and reference 14,000. These are the ones you want to look for. They're still a little basic, but you get more than you would with the Oyster or the Oyster Date. Next up, now we're getting to a little bit more serious territory, the Rolex Date. This is basically just a smaller version of the Datejust. It's automatic, it's 34 millimeters. You have a lot of different dial options. This is a respectable Rolex if you have smaller than 6.5-inch wrist. The references you're looking for here are 1500, 1501, and 15,000. Number 5, my favorite, and honestly the only one I recommend buying, is the Rolex Datejust, the classic Datejust. It's automatic, 36 millimeters as they should be. You have a million dial options. You have bezel options, smooth bezel, fluted bezel, engine turn bezel. And honestly, this is such a classic Rolex that I don't know why you wouldn't just save a little bit more money compared to the earlier cheaper examples I gave and just buy a Datejust. A Datejust is a serious, respected Rolex. It could be the foundation of a future beautiful Rolex collection. Everyone needs a Datejust. Not everyone needs an Oyster Precision. Datejust is what I would save my money for. In my mind, personally and honestly, if someone has an average size wrist and they're buying one of the previous 4 I mentioned, it's just because they're trying to save money. I would advise saving the money, paying up a little bit, and getting a Datejust. The references you're looking for are 1601, 1603, 16014, 16030. Thanks for watching. Please leave a comment, please follow.